We are now joined by, as is the norm of the show, an advisor, somebody who can tell us what kind of funds should the investment be made into. Should contra funds be the correct investment idea right now? And if not, and if yes, what are the contra funds you can bet on? And if no, what are the funds in general that one can bet on right now? He's been with us before. Nirav Panchmatia joins us right now again on the show. Nirav, good having you. Thanks so much for joining in all the way from Nagpur, I might add. So thanks so much for taking the pain and coming out here.
Pleasure is mine.
What are you advising your top clients to do right now, Nirav? Some contra funds are giving great returns. Is that a space, value / contra to be in, or do you look out for maybe balance funds or some other funds considering the market is at 10,000?
So Niraj, while contra funds are a good bet at all points of time, but they are a preferred bet especially when the market is a little bit overvalued. So as we are aware right now, the market is not cheap by any stretch of imagination. In these times, contra fund being a fund which bets on undervalued sector, it controls your risk. It brings it down your risk, but at the same time, it doesn't compromise on the return. So during these times when the market is a little bit expensive, contra is a very good bet to have because your downside is protected. Contra fund by definition invest in sectors, asset classes or stocks which are out of favor. That means you're not buying something very expensive. So if there's a market correction, your downside is protected, but if the market goes up, there's a good upside for you to have.
So the advice that we've received, over the past few days or the past few weeks that we've done the MF show is that maybe people could look at balance funds with the markets being at these levels. You would suggest that contra funds probably provide an equal and opportunity as well?
Yeah, so in this market, both balance and hybrid funds, balance fund is a subcategory of hybrid funds, and contra funds make sense. If you are a long-term equity investor and if you want to go all the way for an equity fund, then within the entire equity fund universe, a contra fund makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
When you go for an hybrid fund, you are bringing down your equity allocation. So if you want to have a conservative bet, you go for hybrid funds. But if you want to be in equity, and you know that the market is expensive, then the best bet, the best theme would be a contra bet in these times.
Okay, so in which case, Nirav, tell me a couple of things. One is, if you are indeed in recommending a contra fund, there are not too many options. You just spoke to Tahir Badshah of Invesco. Their fund has done exceptionally well. Is that a fund that people can invest into? You don't have to say a yes. Or are there other options that are available?
No, definitely. Me and my clients are invested in that fund. So with that caveat, so I would differ a little bit. Although there are very few 2 or 3 funds out there in the market with the name contra in the name of the fund, I believe by definition all value funds are also contra funds in one sense of the definition. So by that, if you broaden the horizon a little bit of the definition of a contra fund, there are more options than only 2 or 3 funds out there.
Which are better than the contra funds, you would say?
So I mean, it's not right to compare. They are also contra funds by the nature.
So let me ask you, there are people who have finite pools of money, right?
Yeah.
So one, you've recommended the Invesco India Contra Fund and the SBI Magnum Contra Fund. My question to you would be, if somebody wants to invest in a contrarian theme, not necessarily the name contra, but a contrarian theme, are the Invesco India Contra Fund and SBI Magnum Contra Fund good options or are the only options, or would you believe that there are other options which could provide better investing opportunity? Let's say I have 10,000 bucks and I want to invest in one fund.
Okay, so then there is a contra fund which defines itself as a contra fund, right? You don't have to look anywhere else. So Invesco India Contra Fund has been named, defined, and it is mentioned in the investment objective of the scheme. That is it is an out and out contra fund. Plus it has been as your slide out there shows, it has been an outperformer. And a contra fund by definition is not supposed to perform a growth fund right now, which is the flavor of the season. Yet this particular fund has done that. So there's no harm in recommending that particular fund to my clients and to yourself. If you want to further take equity bets, and if you can't restrict yourself to a single fund, then you look at other value funds also.
Okay. Would you be able to share names here?
So Birla Sun Life Pure Value Fund. There is this particular fund which is PPFAS, Parak Parik Long Term Value Fund. Now this fund at its core, the strategy is a contra bet. It does not like to own stocks that are in favor and that are extremely overvalued. It likes to bet on stocks, on sectors which are out of favor in the market, which falls in the definition of a contra fund. So one can, and that is not fully invested in Indian equity. It has 25-30% exposure to international equity because it thinks Indian equities are a bit overvalued.
Sure.
So that also is a contra theme, although they don't name the fund as a contra fund.
Okay. Nirav, any final thoughts on this theme or otherwise how people should be approaching investing in funds currently at these moments?
So Contra fund, the definition of a Contra strategy is that you bet on out of favor. So you bet against the trend, you go against the herd mentality.
Is it possible to invest in funds like that, Nirav? Are there funds which are out of favor right now which can come back?
So infrastructure fund last year, last year.
You're talking about thematic fund.
So a theme which is out of favor. So Contra means you bet on an asset class which is out of favor. So you put your money in equity or real estate when they are out of favor, or you bet on a sector which is out of favor, or you bet on a stock within a sector which is out of favor. But mind you, one has to be very careful. Just because something is out of favor doesn't mean it is. So definition of a Contra fund is you bet on a underdog, or you bet on a unsung hero. Now both the words are important. Unsung, it is out of favor. It has to be a hero. There has to be a future potential in that particular sector or stock. If there's no merit in it, then you should not be betting on it. So I'll just add, there was this hockey player, very famous ice hockey player, or a hockey coach, who said, don't go where the puck is, go where the puck is going to be. Right? So similarly, Contra says, look, this sector is P-derated, or the P-rating has not happened. This stock is out of favor right now because of some temporary issues. But if I look at it from the next 2 to 3 years perspective, I see a lot of value there. You have to have a merit in that particular thing. And Warren Buffett, if I may add, is one of the best, since he's the biggest and he defines what value investing is. He also happens to be one of the best Contra players out there, Contra investors.
In all the investments that he did in 2008.
2008 when he bet on GE and Goldman Sachs, and mind you, he didn't bet on it on these two companies for the last 5 years when they were in favor. He bet on them when they were available 90% down from their peak valuation.
I must add, though, viewers out here, that if you are indeed adopting this approach of taking a thematic fund or a thematic stock for that matter, you believe that the stock could do well or the theme could do well over a period of 5 years while being out of favor, you need to know the sector or the asset class inside out. If you do not know, I think that options open. If you want to make the best returns and you know the sector inside out and you believe the sector is turning around, go and bet on the stocks in that space. If you know that the sector is turning around or you don't know how to invest in companies, I think thematic funds or Contra funds might be a great idea. For all of you who otherwise believe that you don't know either of these but want you to make the best returns, I think mutual funds is the best category, and which is why we're doing this show. Nirav, Panchmatia, thank you so much for taking the time out today and joining us on the Mutual Fund Show. And viewers, thanks for tuning in as well. I know we've not been able to answer a lot of your questions, but we'll request both our guests, Tahir Badshahs, Invesco, and Nirav Panchmatia, to take time out over the course of the next 2 or 3 days and give in the replies to your questions. If you do have any of the questions or comments, please leave them on our Facebook page and we'll try and get them answered. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Mutual Fund Show. We'll see you next Wednesday, same time.